Tesla's making some major moves in China, charging forward to beat last year and even new build-outs. First, Tesla China, in an unusual move, shared a fan-made video of the Roadster. Elon Musk replied, saying the new Roadster is something special beyond a car. It's curious why they posted this in China. Second, we've got last week's China sales to report. It's the highest week of the quarter, and we're now just 7% down compared to last year, despite the factory shutdown for the Model Y refresh. And Tesla also launched its first version 4 supercharger operation in Beijing. This is the world's first full V4 site. Third, we've got a lot of graphs to show you how China is dominating the global EV market. Chinese electric vehicles now account for more than half of global sales and are priced thousands of dollars cheaper. Elon Musk's prediction that at some point the top 10 will be Tesla and 9 other Chinese automakers is coming true. We've got Brian White here with us today. He's one of our best Tesla retail analysts. His YouTube channel, FutureAza, very incredible. He is one of the few that regularly travels the world and gets exclusive factory tours and interviews. Check him out there. Thank you, Brian.
Great to be here. The China topic, obviously, that's right in my wheelhouse. I've been covering that pretty extensively for years now. So, yeah, there's a lot to cover.
Yeah, we've got lots of new data, new things like Roadster and Superchargers there, and then the big report. We got to get there soon. So we've got, for some reason, Tesla China shared this fan-made Roadster video. It's very, very well done on Weibo. Let's watch what it looks like. And then, of course, Elon came back and said the new Roadster is something special beyond a car. So do you think that they're going to sell this in... I can't play it, right? Because it's the music is going to be copyrighted. So let's turn it off. Unfortunately, it was really good. The music's part of it. But, what do you think about this? Why did they share this? I mean, yeah, fan-made video, but will they sell Roadster in China? Yeah.
The first part of the reason why is there is a PR department in China. Elon does not speak Mandarin. He cannot read Chinese, I assume. So that is a market where they have a PR department. This is good PR. Will the Roadster be sold in China? Why not? I mean, they'll sell any car in any market that makes sense. The Cybertruck has all kinds of weird regulations, but this is a car. Now, to what extent it's an insane car remains to be seen. It's probably going to be mind-bogglingly insane, but that doesn't mean you can't sell it in those markets. It may have some kind of premium. For example, import tariffs. In some countries, they'll put on extra taxes if the motor has too much kilowatts of output power, which this absolutely would. But when you're talking about a hypercar, buyers are less price sensitive. So this would absolutely sell. I would be very surprised if this wasn't sold in China within a year of its release.
Yeah. Obviously, sometimes your company, you need to have this hero product. You're not really trying to sell millions of it, but you just want to be able to show this is the best. This car is going to fly. That fan-made video didn't make it look like it was going to fly, but boy, you got some very talented people that love Tesla. So yeah, that's coming soon. So let's take a look at what's actually happening in China. You can tell us if you think that this is a big move forward or just more of the same. So last week, September 8th to 14th, Tesla registration was 15,400 cars. The year to date, that's 7% year over year. It is the highest week of the quarter. We love to look at Roland Piloli's charts. He's great. We've been following this forever. And you can look at the blues, the year to date 2025. We looked at it last week, remember? And you were saying it's getting closer, but we're trying to get closer to 2024, which is the red. And looks like it's kind of that there. Do you think that by the end of the year, it will get past that red? I mean,
past it is tough to say because there was weeks of downtime. It's not like we need more demand or we need more markets to export to. The factory was simply closed. Worth noting, when you look at this chart that you have, go back one, there is, you'll notice a bump. There is still quarterly waves. They're getting smaller over time, but they are still there. There's still an end of quarter localization of sales that allow you to capture a few extra. And then you'll see a little bit of flatness at the beginning of each quarter. And that's because they just loaded up the ships. Nobody is able to buy them. No one can take delivery while it's in transit. That's going to continue probably forever, but the number will, as you can see over the past few years, it has gotten smaller. So this is great. down 7% year over year, 7% of the year so far. We're only talking about a few weeks of downtime. That's what they had. That's how much off they are. Now, we do see that the 2025 number is diverging a little more than we'd like it to, but we haven't seen the end of quarter. We know that there was a new delivery wave created, a new shock wave that'll take time to iron out. We are seeing Shanghai delivering to more markets, so that will smooth out.
I think it's going to beat last year's numbers, despite the factory being shut down for many weeks because of the new Model Y refresh. I'm expecting the Model L
to build.
The Model L to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The Model L will show up. Not yet. It hasn't shown up yet. We'll show the numbers here. But also, I think that the more affordable vehicle, if it launches in China, which we hope it does, that could get it to, to pass last year's numbers in China. We'll see. You've got this news here from Tesla China saying that, okay, so September, the first week of September was 14,300. This week was 15,300. The Model Y was about 9,400 of that. The Model YL was just 1,000. So it's still like, yes, it's a big deal, but it's not, not yet showing up. And I think that's just the second week. So I think next week will be when it shows up. Do you think so too?
Absolutely. This vehicle is not demand constrained. It is production constrained. We know that there are more than 1,000 orders for it. It's just like looking at the sale of performance models in Europe. They need to actually get them out to customers before they can sell them. So we'll get a better picture as time goes on.
Yeah. And then this is Tesla Chan started to break it out between Model Y Ls. You see that the first week was 900, then 1,000. So I think that this is where things will hopefully start to break out.
It'll absolutely continue expanding as they're able to get more of them into the hands of customers.
Okay. What's the importance of this? Full version 4 supercharger in Beijing. I've got the video here to play here. I'll take off the music. Yeah, tell us what's going on.
Sure. So these new cabinets are designed to provide higher wattage, higher levels of juice to the vehicle. These are 500 kilowatt chargers. Tesla vehicles at this time cannot accept 500 kilowatts, but if they're charging somebody else's car, because the network, presumably everybody's open to everything in markets where all the handles match anyway. If it's a non-Tesla vehicle, you could charge it faster, and the next generation of Tesla vehicles could then take advantage of this higher charging. You want to future-proof as much as you can, and that's how you do it. And one thing I had read was that these are the same cabinets that will be used for the semis. That the version 4 cabinet, instead of it being split for two vehicles, will just be dedicated for one semi and capable of giving it a megawatt or more of power. And it could be that you could also even split it for semis, so that if you are not as time sensitive, but you do have more semis to charge overnight, you could keep more of them on the charger and just charge them at half speed instead of full speed. So these are future-proof. Now, 500 kilowatts, you say, well, but doesn't China already have megawatt charging for cars? Yes, but how useful is that? You can't maintain the full megawatt for an extended period of time, clearly, or you'd fill the car in 6 minutes, 7 minutes. You're going to hit the taper part of the curve. When you're fast charging, you start very high and then the charge comes down. It must, otherwise you'd set the car on fire. So what you would see is this would add, by being at 500 kilowatts instead of a megawatt, what you'd see is maybe an extra minute or two at full charge before the taper hits. It's only going to add a little bit of time by having half the juice.
Gotcha. You know a lot. This is great. Thank you for sharing that info. So this is the supercharger. Looks like that's it's the first full version 4 supercharger, and it's going to be the world's first full version 4 site with both version 4 cabinets and version 4 stalls. Why do they do it first in Beijing versus, let's say, the US or other parts?
Well, Beijing makes their own superchargers. Not Beijing, I'm sorry. Their Shanghai makes their own superchargers.
It's not coming from
not
New
coming
York
from
or
Buffalo. This is
Buffalo?
there are 2 supercharger factories in the world. I asked
Oh, okay.
a supercharger, a lead, regional deployment, the guy who runs all the deployments in the Northwest. What's the difference between the Buffalo cabinets and the Shanghai cabinets? And he said, I don't know, because I've never seen one, and we don't see them. They're entirely
Okay.
separate from what we do. So yes, those are made in Shanghai. It could be that they got them first, but it could also be that China is where you need the higher juice to compete. Everything is cutting edge in terms of electrification in China. It would make sense to me to put them somewhere where someone might be able to use it, as opposed to here where, there's just no megawatt cars out here.
Okay. Cool. All right. So this is a big report we're going to share here. This is a really good report. So first of all, the big headline is Chinese electric vehicles now account for more than half of global sales, and they're priced thousands of dollars below US and European models. This is the report here. See how China is dominating the global EV market. Even in the age of tariffs, China has been able to increase the share of global sales. BYD and Geely have been able to roll out models faster and more cheaply than established rivals. Of course, there's the government subsidies, but it often costs thousands of dollars, but they're breaking through. Here's the Chinese-made EVs as share of total EVs on the first quarter to second quarter of this year, of 2020 to 25. You can see that in China, of course. This is China. China-made EVs as a share of total EVs. Huh.
That is interesting. I would have thought it was much higher before.
Wouldn't it be 100%? Okay, I don't get that. But here's Thailand, of course. They're based there and so forth, and you can see that. And these are the countries where the Chinese EVs are starting to break through in many countries. EVs as a share of car sales. Right? Here's the world. Now you're getting closer to 20%. And then you can see Europe, North America is really just way below. So it's not really working out there too much. Thoughts on this table? Yeah.
Well, we are over 20% globally. That is the tipping point by many standards. You can see that, select regions, Asia Pacific, over 30%. That's a lot of developing countries are wrapped in that. And what we're seeing, what I saw in Nepal, is just like we saw in Africa with cell phones, skipping the entire landline era. There are places that really never got all the way on board with internal combustion who are just going to leapfrog past it. We're not going to try and set up the world's best pipelines and refineries and all that. We're just going to skip it completely because we've already got electricity. And as countries electrify, Ethiopia is now developing tons of hydropower. They have shifted to banning the import of internal combustion engines. This trend is only going to accelerate. The fact that so many of the U.S. automakers are not on board with electrification, scaling back plans, canceling models outright, is concerning for the future of those companies. I'm sure they'll all survive. I'm sure it will be brutally painful, and some of them may contract to being North American vehicles rather than world vehicles, but that is what happens when you're chasing quarterly returns instead of a long-term plan.
Yeah. What's scary about this tables here is that this is the average of the world, but China is the one that's basically well past everyone else. Everyone else is below, except for Asian Pacific countries like Vietnam, Thailand, Australia. These guys are all below. Everyone else below, but China. Mm-hmm. That's the scary part. These are Chinese-made EVs as a share of total EVs, and again, you can see that China has made its way into almost every country. They're there. They're out there. So you're thinking that they're not in the U.S., but they're out there.
It's hard to see beyond our own front yard sometimes. I've met people who said Chinese EVs don't really exist. They're only in China. And I know because I go outside and I never see one. And I say, yeah, but you've seen Geely and Volvo. Those are, or Polestar and Volvo. Those are Chinese EVs. And while not all of them are made in China, I mean, those are Chinese companies. But the reality is, those cars are just de facto banned in the US. When you get to a country that doesn't have protectionist policies because they have no domestic auto manufacturing industry to protect, you get a clearer picture of what people actually want. And what they want is a good value on a car.
This one's a little confusing to me because it says European EV sales quarterly 2020 2025. These are for 15 European countries. And they're making it look like that BYD and SAIC just completely outsells in Europe against BMW and Volkswagen?
They're just the top little sliver. No. The stacking is weird. It's just a poorly chosen graph.
Oh God. Okay. Thank you.
BMW is getting the lion's share in Europe is what I'm seeing.
All right. I don't know.
Or is that Volkswagen? Boy, that's Volkswagen.
Stacking.
Oh, I can't even tell. Terrible.
Gotcha. BMW is huge. Thank you.
No, that's Volkswagen. The little one above it is, see, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's stacking. Okay, so this is China-made EVs as share of total EVs. We talked about it. Canada, of course, is very tiny. US is tiny, but make no mistakes out of it. They're in Mexico. They're in Brazil. They're in Colombia, right? They're surrounding the US. And then this is in the US, and the maximum in the dark is 10% or 10 plus to 20%, right? So in Washington State, it's about 10% or so higher. California is 19%. That's the highest. But the rest, that's it. So basically EVs are selling, and it's a low number of under 10, 20% in Washington, California, Nevada, Colorado, and DC, and the rest of the places, it's under 10%.
Mm-hmm. And you look at North Dakota, South Dakota, where you have no chargers, really, very few chargers, under 2.5%. You must be that weird guy that owns an EV.
This is just, obviously, the U.S. is so far behind in EVs. And I keep, the easiest way for me to explain to people that why this is such a strategic mistake is that these are smart cars versus dumb cars. It's not the fact that it's EVs versus gas. It's not about car sales. It's about smart car sales that will be ready for autonomy. It's going to be ready for, just the future where there's going to be entertainment and AI and energy and battery sales, right? The more battery sales, the more, the stronger your country is in selling batteries. So EVs as a share of new vehicle registrations, select states. Here you go. California went up and then kind of went back down again. And then you got Nevada. And then you got the U.S. total sticking around. I don't know. Why is it down here at just under, I guess, 8%? I thought I heard that it was already closer to, 9%.
Well, it was, but now it isn't. If you go back just a couple quarters there, you'll see how much closer to 9% it was.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just saw recent data. So I think it was for the month, but I don't know. This is weird. Okay. And then, this is interesting. It says the market demand for new energy vehicles in China in 2026 will test every manufacturer and prove to be a challenging year. The government will resume collecting purchase taxes while simultaneously reducing or eliminating subsidies. So the good days in China are over, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And they've already been doing that. EVs originally got a real leg up when it came to cities like Shanghai and Beijing, where you have to apply for the lottery to get a license to drive in that city, a plate that allows you to drive in that city. What they said is, no wait. If you want an EV, you can just get a plate. You don't have to game the system. You don't have to hope for your best luck. You can just get an EV. And obviously that's not going to work if all cars are electric. What would be the point? The roads would just be choked with cars. They had generous tax rebates available up to a couple $1,000s, a few $1,000s. Those have been scaled back. And even the manufacturers would get some credits for doing it, just like we've done in the US, just like every country has done to some extent, where they would offer either buyer incentives, seller incentives, or producer incentives. And China's at the point where they just can't do that. I had a gentleman in my comments the other day telling me that the reason Chinese cars are $10,000 less than the competition is because China subsidizes them by $10,000 each. And I said, my friend, that would be $1/3 trillion US per year. They don't have that kind of money. No, they've They laid the groundwork, they planted the seeds, and now it's harvest time.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting what's going to happen to the Chinese market. But they're way ahead. Doesn't matter almost. This is how they got to be where the general consumer is now buying EVs and hybrids. But eventually EVs are taking over. So EVs plus hybrid is now over 50% in China. So the game's up for ICE vehicles. That's no longer going to be the future. Where do you think Tesla is going to be? So far, my sense is that Tesla has held its own in China, despite it being priced so high over, whatever, 44,000 in the US, in China, US dollars in China, very high segment. Yet it's still, top seller there. China's doing well. Tesla's doing well there. And then,
well, let me just answer your question, because I know where we're going with this. You and I had a discussion last week about market share and how market share is misleading, because they love to look at the EV market share rather than the auto market share. So let's say Tesla builds 1 million a year in Shanghai and sells every single one of them in China. The Chinese auto market's 31 million vehicles. That would put them at about 3% market share. Oh my gosh, their EV market share started at 60, 70%, and now it's down to 3%. Right. Yeah. But they're making all the cars and they're selling all the cars. So where will they be? Well, unless they build another factory, 3 to 5% market share is the ultimate number that they will get to as everyone else switches, completes the transition from gas and hybrid to full electric. So.
Right. But I'm expecting that the more affordable vehicle. So this is Tesla still succeeding with a 44,000, 50,000 plus car.
Well, the Model Y is 36. It's more like 36,000. It's very affordable in China.
Okay. But regardless what the price point is, it's still at this high segment. Right. There's only a few cars that are competing with Tesla at that high segment, because other car makers are selling cars for $5,000, $10,000 US dollars equivalent. Right. So what happens when Tesla introduces the more affordable vehicle there?
They're going to need a bigger factory, is my short answer. I hope they've found a way to manufacture it very quickly, because they're not going to be able to keep orders filled. Like I've pointed out a while back, Tesla makes more profit on a Model Y than a Wuling Mini costs. Wuling cannot catch up on profit. Someone asked me, well, Tesla, sure, the numbers may not look as good relative to the others, but how does the profit compare? I said, there is profit. Start there. The other guys, a lot of them are making thousands and thousands of cars and zeros of dollars. So that's not a great business model, but they will grow out of it.
Yeah, let's take a look at one data point. I don't know how real this is, but Michael Dunn, I'm interviewing him on Friday. So we'll have a show this weekend. He's the expert. He's an ex-president of GM in Indonesia. He lived in China like you did. He knows the market, auto market. He works at Detroit, of course, and all the car makers consult with him. He said China, thin profits for some, large losses for many. In the first half of 2025 profits, BYD made $2 billion, Geely $1.3 billion, and SAA $0.9 billion versus Toyota $14 billion, Volkswagen $9.5, $6.1. I think that's total profit, right? So some Chinese car makers remain profitable despite price wars. And this is the table here. These are the guys that still, and again, it's hard to know how real this is, because these are, probably, not audited kind of financials, but still,
you can say they're audited, but you need to use big, heavy quotation fingers because their auditing standards are different than they are in the US. So when I was in Shanghai, I spent a day with an engineer from Honda, who has been in the industry for decades. He's worked for a variety of companies. And I said, yeah, but the Chinese guys are selling at a loss. And he said, oh, no, not on a per unit basis. They may be losing money due to expansion and R&D and CapEx, but not OpEx. They are per unit positive on every vehicle. That's why all of them are so aggressively pushing for volume. When you look at someone like Rivian and Lucid, companies that are losing money on a per unit basis, you'll notice they do not push for volume the same way, especially Lucid. They lose so much money on every $80,000 car that costs them $130,000, $150,000 to build. The only way to lose less money is to sell fewer cars. And if there's one thing Lucid is good at, it is selling fewer cars. So this is a bit of a misunderstanding. They are pointed in the right direction. but they are expanding so aggressively because they all understand that while they could step back and say, okay, we're just going to take 1 year to regroup and just collect some money to make shareholders happy, or whoever, that year they would lose too much ground. That could be the end of them. So they're just leaning forward all the time.
Yeah. So I don't know when it was. Feels like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, when Elon was interviewed, and he said he thinks that in the future, the top automakers, the top 10 automakers, it's going to be Tesla first, followed by 9 Chinese automakers.
That's what Sandy Munro said to me in an interview 2-3 years ago now. Because I said, Tesla is going to be at near the top. Who knows who's behind them? And he said, all Chinese, every single one. And if you look at the volume, of BYD, they're going to be number one soon. They're going to surpass Volkswagen, Toyota, GM. They're going to pass everyone. They are climbing the ranks quickly. And someone said, well, yes, but if you take out their battery division, do they still have profit? I said, I don't know. And I'm not sure it matters, because they have the battery division. If you take out the ICE division, does GM still have profit? If you take out Tesla's battery division, that's something like 22% of their profit. So it is a whole company. And just like someone asked me, why are Tesla superchargers cheaper than everybody else's, even though I don't drive a Tesla? Even paying the extra little premium for my car not being a Tesla, it's still the cheapest and the best. And I said, because that's not what they do for a living. That's what Electrify America does. They have to charge you. Tesla has chargers as a side business, just the same way GM has electric cars as a side business. So they can give you a Equinox for $29,000, even though they're losing money.
This is why this table is so devastating, because if Asia Pacific, but look at China, right? China, their percentage, their EV sales in their country is at 50%. Well, if you add in the hybrids, okay, it's over 50%. Everyone else, it's below everything, the world average, because of them. So basically they won the game. They're way ahead. So why does that matter? Because volume matters. If you are a car maker, you want to be in a market that you're going to sell volume, because volume gets you lower price, gets you scalability, lets you sell your cars and then improve on them. And it's just, when I see this, it feels like it's game over for any other car maker, unless they turn around selling. I mean, Ford and GM are kicked out of China. They need to sell in North America, and yet they're under 10% EVs. So the longer you wait, if they release it again, maybe they might sell to 10,000 cars, 100,000 cars, 200,000 cars. By that point, Chinese automakers are each selling over 1 million cars, So it's like, okay, it's over.
It's crazy. China's bringing up the average by a lot, and you're absolutely right. Those companies that are not on board, and China does have a looming hard end date to internal combustion. Most countries do at this point. If you're still developing new V8s in an era when the world has already said those expire, there's an end date on those. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah. And a show that we're going to do next, we're going to be talking about Lucid and Rivian. We're going to go deep dive in what's happening in them. Thank you very much, Brian. Your knowledge is unmatched. Thank you very much. I appreciate doing this, especially when it comes to these factories and country, global. You're the one that travels the world the most of anybody I know, goes to factories, checks it out, dealerships in China, Nepal. I don't know where else you've been, all over Mexico. The U.S. just this year, Mexico, right? Appreciate you. Go check out his YouTube channel, FutureAza. He's got some very unique videos, deep dive if you want to learn more. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.